a combine harvester whose entire technology was developed in secret in a locked garage with frosted windows for nearly 2 decades before anyone outside knew it existed. A hay baler so far ahead of its time that the company who built it watched their competitors copy it and get rich while they went bankrupt. A tractor with 110 horsepower that barely anyone bought because only 1,185 were ever made. These 10 machines planted, harvested, and baled their way into history. Then the world forgot every single one of them. Number 10. The Allis-Chalmers Roto-Baler. Walk into any farm supply store today, and you will find entire sections devoted to round baler parts, twine, and net wrap. The round bale is so universal in modern agriculture that it is almost impossible to imagine a world before it existed. But there was a world before it, and the first company to successfully mass-produce a round baler did it in 1947, made it work, sold tens of thousands of them, and then watched the idea sit dormant for another quarter century before the rest of the world caught up. That company was Allis-Chalmers. That machine was the Roto-Baler. The idea of compressing hay into a round bale rather than a rectangular one was not entirely new. Inventors had been experimenting with the concept since the late 1800s. The Loebben family of Sutton, Nebraska, received a patent for a round baling press design in 1910, originally conceived to roll straw into logs that could be burned as fuel during prairie winters. But no one had successfully mass-marketed a working round baler until Allis-Chalmers tractor division manager Harry Merritt acquired rights to the Loebben design in 1940 and set his engineers to work refining it. 6 experimental machines were built and field-tested in 19. The results were encouraging enough that Allis-Chalmers put the machine into production in the Roto-Baler. In the first year of production alone, they built 3,000 units. The machine produced bales 3 feet long and ranging from 14 to 22 inches in diameter, depending on density. Individual bales weighing anywhere from 40 to 100 pounds, depending on the material being baled. Number 9. The Minneapolis-Moline G1000. By the mid-1960s, Minneapolis-Moline had built a reputation for bold engineering and striking design. Their bright prairie gold paint scheme, their innovative features, their history of firsts, the company had all of that. What they had never built right up to the middle of the 1960s was a big 6-cylinder row crop tractor. That changed in 1965 with the introduction of the G1000. The G1000 was powered by Minneapolis-Moline's own 504 cubic inch 6-cylinder diesel engine, the D504A6 producing 110 horsepower at the power takeoff as confirmed by Nebraska tractor testing in November 1966. That number put it among the most powerful production row crop tractors available in North America at the time of its introduction. The machine weighed nearly 11,000 pounds without ballast, and with a full load of cast iron weights it could tip the scales at 18,000 pounds, serious iron that could anchor the heaviest tillage implements of the era. Standard equipment included the Ampli-Torque, Minneapolis-Moline's name for a torque amplifier that allowed the operator to split each of the 5 main gear ratios, effectively doubling the number of forward speeds available without clutching. Power steering was standard. A dual-speed PTO capable of both 540 and 1,000 RPM was standard, and the 3-point hitch allowed the G1000 to carry a wide range of rear-mounted implements. Minneapolis-Moline also offered the G1000 in a wheatland version, a fixed tread configuration suited to the wide-open flat ground of the Great Plains, and a 4-wheel drive option was available using a clock front axle. The later G1000 Vista variant raised the operator's station higher off the frame for improved forward visibility and greater separation from engine heat, features that pilots of the era genuinely appreciated. But the numbers tell the quiet story of a machine that arrived without the right company behind it. The Wheatland model had higher production at about 2,050 units, still a very small number compared to what John Deere and International Harvester were selling in the same horsepower class during the same years. The reason was the parent company. Minneapolis-Moline had been purchased by White Motor Corporation in 1963. And under White's ownership, the budget and resources needed to properly market and develop the G1000 into a full competitive product line were simply not forthcoming. White was methodically dismantling the separate identities of Minneapolis-Moline, Oliver, and Cockshut to fold them into a single White brand. The G1000 line was replaced by the G105 in 1969. then discontinued after 1970. The Minneapolis-Moline name itself was dropped from tractor production entirely by Number 8. The Gleaner, a combine. The Gleaner name carries real meaning to serious students of combine history. The Baldwin brothers of Nickerson, Kansas, created the original self-propelled Gleaner combine in 1923, mounting their harvesting machine on a Fordson Model F chassis and selling it for $950 at the factory. In an era when combines were universally towed by separate tractors, the Gleaner was self-propelled, an idea so advanced that it earned the machine a reputation as the Cadillac of the harvest field. By 1955, Allis-Chalmers had recognized what the Gleaner name represented and acquired the Gleaner Combine Harvester Corporation. For several years following the acquisition, Gleaner's profits made up nearly all of Allis-Chalmers' profit from the agricultural division, an extraordinary statement about how well these machines were received by working farmers and especially by custom harvest crews, who moved north with the ripening wheat season and harvested for hire across the Great Plains. The Gleaner, a self-propelled combine which entered production in 1951, embodied a fundamental engineering philosophy that set the Gleaner apart from every other combine on the market. The threshing cylinder, the rotating mechanism that beats the grain loose from the plant, was positioned at the very front of the machine, directly behind the header. This was the opposite of how virtually every other combine was designed, where the cylinder sat further back in the body. Gleaner's position created a shorter, more direct path for material entering the machine, resulting in more consistent threshing and allowing for a dramatically larger cleaning area relative to the machine's overall size. The Gleaner A could be equipped with grain headers from 14 to 20 feet wide, or fitted with a 4-row corn head for corn harvest. One of the first combines genuinely capable of harvesting both grain and corn with a single machine. Custom cutters particularly valued the Gleaner A's ability to work in conditions and crop types that would slow or stop other machines. The Model C that followed was popular enough that it was considered by many custom harvest crews to be the finest combine available through much of the 1960s. The Gleaner's reputation for leaving almost nothing behind in the field, the very meaning of the word glean, was earned through the machine's careful engineering rather than marketing claims. Number 7. The Vermeer 705 Round Baler. Gary Vermeer was a farmer before he was anything else. He grew up farming bottom ground near Pella, Iowa, land that flooded regularly. And his response to the challenges of that land was to invent machines that dealt with the problems. He built trenches for drainage, he built stump grinders. He was always making something. The round baler came from a conversation. A local cattle producer told Gary he was getting out of the cattle business because he simply could not find enough help to put up hay anymore. The labor required to cut, bale, handle, and store square bales was overwhelming for a single-family operation. Gary heard that and started designing. He and Vermeer engineer Arnie Mathis chalked out the initial concept on the factory floor. A prototype was ready for field testing just 45 days later. When they fired it up, it didn't work. The bale wouldn't start forming. Gary Vermeer threw a fence post into the machine. The bale started. He immediately ordered a supply of cardboard tubes to pre-start each bale until they could engineer a proper mechanical solution, and then worked out the finger system that eventually solved the problem permanently. The machine that resulted, introduced in 1971 and known initially as the 705 baler, made bales 6 feet wide and 5 feet in diameter. Each bale weighed approximately 1,500 pounds. That was nearly 10 times the weight of any bale that any other baler on the market could produce. And critically, the entire operation required exactly one person, the tractor driver. No crew needed, no stack wagon crew, no barn loft workers. One farmer, one tractor, one baler moving across the field. The first Vermeer baler went to work during haying season in 1971, and the reaction was immediate. Farmers traveled to see it demonstrated at county fairs and pulled along the side of the road to watch it work. By 1972, Vermeer was building 30 balers per day. By 1975, 15 American and Canadian companies had introduced their own large round balers, all building on the concept that Gary Vermeer had proven in a Pella, Iowa factory 45 days after sketching it on a concrete floor. What is remarkable is how thoroughly Gary Vermeer himself has been forgotten in the public memory of this invention. The large round bale is everywhere. You cannot drive through any agricultural region of North America, Europe or Australia without seeing them dotting the fields. The round bale wrapper, the bale accumulator, the bale spear, the silage wrap, entire industries exist because Gary Vermeer threw a fence post into a prototype in and yet if you ask a random person on the street who invented the modern round baler, almost nobody knows the answer. Number 6. The IH Axial-Flow 1440-1460. In the late 1950s, a small group of international harvester engineers in East Moline, Illinois, began work on a completely new kind of combine harvester. Their project was so sensitive, and their facility was located so close to John Deere's own engineering facility, that the team moved their development work into a nondescript cement block building on the IH campus. The building had frosted windows. Access was strictly controlled by key. Only the engineers directly on the project were allowed inside. The development work went on inside that locked garage for the next 17 years. The key engineers were Elof Carlson and Mel Van Buskirk. What they were building was a combine whose threshing and separation was performed entirely by a single longitudinal rotor, a long rotating cylinder running from front to back through the machine, rather than the conventional system of a threshing drum followed by straw walkers. The rotor used centrifugal force to throw grain outward through concaves as it spun, moving crop through the machine in about 3 seconds compared to the 9 seconds required by conventional designs. The advantages in theory were enormous: faster throughput, gentler handling of fragile grain, fewer moving parts in the separation system, and a dramatically more compact machine relative to its harvesting capacity. But making it work reliably in the enormous variety of crops, conditions, and moisture levels that farmers encountered required years of patient, secretive field testing. The first 300 Axial-Flow combines finally went to market in the fall of 1977. 2 initial models were offered. The 1440, powered by a 135 horsepower engine with a 24-inch rotor and a 145 bushel grain tank, and the more powerful 1460 with a 170 horsepower turbocharged engine and a 180 bushel grain tank. The following year, the larger 1480 arrived with 190 horsepower and a 73 hectoliter tank capacity. Farmers who tried the Axial-Flow machines were frequently stunned by their harvesting speed and capacity. A single machine could do the work that previously required multiple conventional combines working the same field. The design was so fundamentally superior for high-throughput harvesting that it triggered an industry-wide redesign of every major manufacturer's combine line. Within a decade of the IH Axial-Flow's introduction, rotary and axial-flow designs had become the dominant technology across the global combine market. Number 5. The Sperry New Holland Tree 70. 2 years before International Harvester's Axial-Flow came to market, a different company with a different rotor design had already changed the game. In 1975, the New Holland division of Sperry Rand Corporation introduced the TR70, the first production rotary combine ever built in the United States, and the first machine to commercially replace the conventional drum and straw walker design that had been the universal standard in harvesting technology since the early days of the self-propelled combine. The TR70's twin rotors ran at an angle axially through the machine's body. This orientation shortened the machine considerably while still providing the rotational separation that gave rotary technology its advantages. The two 17-inch diameter rotors spun in opposite directions, using centrifugal force to eject grain through the concaves as material worked its way from the front of the machine to the rear. The crop spent approximately 3 seconds passing through the machine, compared to 9 seconds in a conventional combine, a threefold increase in throughput capacity relative to machine size. The TR70 was powered by either a 105 horsepower Ford V8 gas engine or a 166 horsepower Caterpillar V8 diesel, and offered a 190 bushel grain tank capacity with an unload rate of 1.5 bushels per second. It was designed as a compact machine particularly well suited to hilly terrain, where conventional combines with long straw walkers struggled to maintain grain separation on slopes. The rotary design maintained consistent performance regardless of the angle of operation. New Holland had been secretly developing the twin rotor concept since 1968, when they trialed their first development machine, adapted from a Belgian-built 985 straw walker model from the Clayus factory they had acquired in 1964. in maize and wheat. By 1969, a completely new machine was under development, and 6 years of refinement followed before the TR70 went to market. Number 4. The Minneapolis-Moline UDLX Tonfa tractor. The year is 1938. Every other tractor manufacturer in America is building open cab machines. No roof, no windshield, no protection from rain, dust, or the pounding Midwestern sun. Minneapolis-Moline looks at that landscape and decides to build something completely different. The result was the UDLX Comfort Tractor, and it came standard with a heater, a radio, upholstered seats, safety glass windows, windshield wipers, a passenger seat, a speedometer, a clock, a sun visor, a rear view mirror, and yes, a cigarette lighter. Entry to the fully enclosed cab was through a rear door. The machine was painted in bright prairie gold with chromed bumpers and hubcaps and wore an Art Deco body that looked more like a streamlined automobile than anything that had appeared in a farm field before. Minneapolis-Moline had done market research. Independent surveys showed that approximately 50% of the nation's farmers said they wanted a tractor with a cab. The company took that number seriously, spent 3 years developing the UDLX and introduced it at a National Harvest Festival and Style Show in 1938, before a crowd of 12,000 farmers. The tractor itself was mechanically solid. The 283.7 cubic inch 4-cylinder engine produced 46 horsepower and a 5-speed synchronized manual transmission. Genuine synchromesh gears, like an automobile, gave the machine a top road speed of 40 miles per hour. A highway-capable farm tractor in 1938 was essentially unheard of. The price was the machine's fatal flaw, $2,155 at launch. A comparable standard tractor from John Deere or Farmall cost approximately $1,000. A brand new 1938 Ford Deluxe sedan cost $725. A farmer who wanted both field power and personal transportation could buy a standard tractor and a new car and have money left over, with better vehicles for both tasks. The 50% of farmers who told surveyors they wanted a cab did not show up at dealerships to pay twice the price of a conventional tractor for one. Number 3. The John Deere 80110. In October 1959, at the largest farm field day event in Iowa history up to that point, John Deere unveiled It was the company's first articulated four-wheel drive tractor, 150 drawbar horsepower, from a General Motors 6-cylinder 2-cycle diesel engine, styled by the legendary Henry Dreyfuss and Associates firm, weighing roughly 20,000 pounds and riding on 4 equal tires at a time when no other major manufacturer offered anything remotely comparable in a production tractor. The price was $30,000. In 1960, a John Deere 40110 row crop tractor, then considered a large, capable machine, sold for under $10,000. The 8010 cost 3 times as much, and using it at full capacity required purchasing new implements sized to match it, implements that either didn't exist yet or were extraordinarily expensive. Farmers who had enthusiastically told John Deere representatives they would absolutely buy such a tractor fell silent when they saw the price tag. Only 100 units were built, and then the transmission failed. The 9-speed truck-type transmission adapted for use in the 8010 proved unable to withstand the continuous sustained loads of field work. The duty cycle of a farm tractor, full throttle for hours and days at a time, at low ground speeds with enormous torque being applied through the drivetrain, was fundamentally different from what a highway truck transmission was designed to handle. John Deere recalled virtually the entire production run. 99 of the 100 units were brought back to the factory, where engineers replaced the transmissions, modified the seats, installed new tires, repainted the machines, and re-released them as the 8020 model. The one unit that escaped the recall was the original prototype, which survived through a series of coincidences and eventually became part of the famous Keller collection, the only 8010 in existence. Every other tractor that bears the 8010 nameplate was systematically converted and relabeled, effectively erasing most physical evidence that the 8010 ever existed. Number 2. The Farmall 560 Hun. In July 1958, International Harvester hosted more than 12,000 dealers from over 25 countries at their testing farm in Hinsdale, Illinois. The event was a celebration. IH was unveiling the Farmall 60 series, including the flagship Farmall 560. The 560 was powered by a new 6-cylinder engine producing 66 horsepower, a modern square-styled machine designed to beat John Deere's competing models and establish IH's leadership in the large row crop market. The problem was invisible at the unveiling. IH had fitted the powerful new 6-cylinder engine into a drivetrain that was essentially unchanged from the previous 4-cylinder Super M series. The rear differential, the bull and pinion gears, the final drive, all of it carried over from the earlier lower torque machine. On paper it seemed acceptable. In practice, the additional torque and power from the 6-cylinder engine accelerated bearing wear in the bull gear assembly at a rate the components were never designed to handle. Ball bearings deteriorated, fell out of their cages, and jammed between the bull gear and the cast rear end housing. The housing then shattered. Word moved at the speed of a party line telephone By mid-year, International Harvester had no choice but to issue a complete recall of the 460, 560, and 6060 series tractors. Every tractor, whether it had failed or not, was to be returned to dealerships for new rear-end components, paid for entirely by IH. The estimated cost of the recall was $19 million, equivalent to over $200 million in today's money. And yet, in one of the most remarkable coincidences in American agricultural business history, 1959 was International Harvester's best sales year in the history of the company. Total company sales reached $1.7 billion, up 24% from 1958. Farm equipment sales alone were $458 million, up 17%. The new 60 series tractors, recalled and repaired, went on to long production lives. Approximately 66,000 Farmall 560s were ultimately produced between 1958 and But among farmers who saw neighbors' tractors fail suddenly and catastrophically in the middle of spring plowing or fall fieldwork, the memory of the 560 recall lingered for decades. John Deere's 4D10, introduced in 1960, benefited from the uncertainty the recall had created. Market share shifted. The reputational damage was real, even if the tractor that caused it recovered and became genuinely excellent once properly engineered. Number 1. The Gleaner N7. In 1978, Gleaner, then a division of Allis-Chalmers following the 1955 acquisition, introduced the N7, and it was a machine that deserved far more recognition than it ever received. The N7 was, at the time of its introduction, the largest combine in production anywhere in the world. Headers could extend to 30 feet in cutting width. The machine's transverse rotary design, where the rotor runs sideways across the machine rather than front to back as in most competing designs, was unique in the industry and remained Gleaner's signature engineering choice for decades. The Gleaner's philosophy had always centered on keeping the cleaning shoe, the sieve system that separates grain from chaff, as large and efficient as possible. The N7's design maximized the cleaning area relative to the machine's footprint, and the low center of gravity that resulted from the transverse rotor configuration gave the machine exceptional stability on slopes and rolling terrain where other large combines struggled to maintain consistent grain separation. Custom harvest crews, who operated the N7 across the wheat belt of Kansas, Oklahoma, and the Texas Panhandle, prized the machine's ability to maintain grain quality even in difficult conditions, tough, green, or tangled crops that would choke or damage competing combines. The N7 could be aggressive on the throttle without sacrificing the cleanliness of grain in the tank, which mattered enormously when farmers were selling grain to elevators that docked prices for excessive moisture or foreign material. Allis-Chalmers went bankrupt in 1985. And the Gleaner brand passed through AGSO's acquisition of the agricultural equipment lines. The N7 series continued in production until 1985, succeeded by improved models. But the corporate turmoil that surrounded Allis-Chalmers' collapse threw enormous confusion over everything the company had built. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for